Hello everybody, I'm James Martin, course manager here at West Sussex Golf Club. Just wanted to talk to you all about some of the heather work we're doing. Now it's that time of the year where we start cutting all the heather and doing some of the regeneration work. So I'd just like to go around the golf course and do some of the areas that you've probably seen us working on. You've probably seen us out starting to cut the heather now, which has probably made some of you very happy. There's a few other areas that we're doing with a bit more regeneration work. So you've probably seen down the left of the first where we've started putting some heather turf in. We've been trying to get some heather on that area by the normal process of stripping the turf off and brashing. It hasn't worked over the last few years, so just trying to get some instant impact. So we're doing a small area of heather turfing, and then we'll try and the rest of the area we'll try and get some regeneration via brashing. So you can see down here we've started, so cut a lot of thick chunks of heather turf. So you have to cut them about 1 to 2 inches thick. So you can see we've started. It's probably about kind of 2 days of work here, so quite a long slow process to get it done. But you can see this area we've stripped away. So the plan is to do all the rest of this, just to sort of link it up with almost the tree line, and you can see where there's some heather growing already in the background behind me. Just down here, just to the right of the 6th and 7th, down in the dip here. What we've done down here is part of our countryside stewardship agreement. So we've cleared out quite a lot of the trees, just open up a bit of light, and we're trying to establish heather down in this area. A lot of the heather we're trying to establish down here is an area of wet heath, which is a slightly different habitat to all the other heather we've got, and supports a whole range of different insects and wildlife. So what we've done down here, we've stripped all the top layer of vegetation off and dug it right down to the sandy soil underneath, which you can probably see behind me. And then, yeah, so we've toothed it all up with a digger so it's nice and loose. And then so we've been cutting the brash from the rest of the golf course, and you can probably see piles of brash behind me and some of these areas of brash down here that we've cut and the guys have spread out. So this has got tops of the heather plants in it and also a lot of the seed in there. So hopefully over the next couple of years that should generate into young heather plants, and we'll gradually establish a nice area of heather down here. We're just down here on the right hand side of the 7th. So this is an area that we've been trying to regenerate for a number of years now. Doesn't seem to have ever really worked, not quite sure why. Could be various reasons. It should work. I mean, there's a nice area of heather just on the right hand side of it, but this bit just doesn't seem to want to take. So what we're going to try and do down here, we're going to do a small area of heather turfing just to start it off, and then come the spring, what we're going to do, we're going to save some of our heather seed that we're cutting now. We're going to use a technique that Woking Golf Club do tend to, and try and pre-germinate some of the heather seed to then spread out in the spring to hopefully try and actually get some heather establishment that way down here. Here on the left hand side of the 9th, this is an area like the right of the 7th that hasn't really worked that well in previous years, but we're starting to get somewhere now. You can see there's quite a few heather plants down in this area. We've tried various sort of techniques, quite a bit of sort of putting heather plants in, rebrashing over the years. We've tried it 3 or 4 times I think. But it's gradually starting to work now, and there's a lot of heather plants establishing themselves in amongst the leaves. You can see from the oak trees, which probably is part of the problem why it's difficult to establish down here. But I think this is coming along nicely. So this area we can just manage normally as we do an area of heather, and hopefully will gradually thicken up over time. Just down here left of the 11th, this is an area we did approximately about a year ago. We have got some good signs of heather germinating down here, so if you look closely, it doesn't look like it, but there are lots of little heather plants gradually appearing. So we're fairly happy. We don't need to do any more work down here. I think eventually this should establish well. It just needs a little bit more time. Next sort of couple of years the heather plants should establish themselves, and it should gradually thicken up and become a nice area of heather like the rest of the side of the fairway. So now we're just down here on the right of the 14th. Again, another area we did a little while ago. Hadn't had much success. We've sort of persevered, and you can sort of see behind me there's a decent amount of heather plants. There is a bit of an area where we've not really got much sign of any heather coming along. Again, if we've got enough heather turf, we're going to try and heather turf that area because it doesn't look like the heather is going to actually naturally grow on that area. So we'll put some heather turf in there just to try and push that area along. But the rest of this area we're pretty happy with. Again, like the 9th and 11th, that it will gradually progress over time and become a nice area of heather. Down the right hand side of the 16th here, again another area that was part of our countryside stewardship agreement. So we've cleared out a number of trees, A, to open up the view into the floating bog over there, B, to kind of clear this area and scrape the vegetation off to create another area of heather and link it up to the heather in the floating bog. So you can see behind me again the topsoil has been scraped off down to sand, and you can see now where we've been cutting the heather, we've got big piles of brash ready to be spread. The 16th, just behind the 9th tee, you can see here an area where we've taken some heather turf away. This was an area, one of the first areas that was scraped and brushed to produce heather, circa 20 years ago I'm told. So you can see that the heather here now is thick enough and healthy enough that we can cut our own turf from it. We did this last year and already there's still some heather plants kind of starting to regenerate here without too much effort. We put some heather brush down last year. A year later it's just sort of starting to grow again and recover. Just standing here behind me, you can see one of the things that grows up in a lot of the heather. We've got a lot of big ones up there as well, lots of the pine trees. So part of our countryside stewardship agreement is that we should plant some trees out on the golf course as well in certain areas. So what we're going to start doing is harvesting some of our own saplings that grow naturally out on the golf course. We'll dig them out, pot them up, look after them for a year so they get a nice healthy root ball, and then we can replant them out on the golf course.